Fang time! Fang super. Literally the whole reason why he's good. Lots of things you need to know though if you want to actually use Fang super good. So I'm gonna help you out with that. First and most annoying thing that happens with Fang super is the fact that when you hit a wall, you stop. Unfortunately, that's what walls do. They make you stop. So with Fang, you really need to keep an eye out for walls. Now, the reason why it's so easy to run into a wall is because you can have a decent amount of your aiming line not actually running into the wall, but you're still gonna run into the wall. You can see in this example, the aiming line doesn't go past the wall, and that's an indicator that you're not actually gonna make it past the wall if you use your super in that position. But if you angle it a little bit more away from the wall, eventually it'll extend out to the full distance, and that means you won't actually run into the wall when you use it. And so whenever there's about a half a tile or more of your aiming line overlapping with the wall, you're gonna bonk. Bonking's not good, by the way. So if you're manually aiming, you can just sort of look at it and tell whether or not you're going to run into the wall. Make sure that your aiming line extends out the full distance and doesn't get stopped or cut off by the wall. That's the easiest thing to look at. But if you're auto aiming, which, I mean, come on, who's not auto aiming with Fang super, right? Then another visual cue you can look for is that you basically need Fang's entire body to make it past the wall. It can't touch the wall at all. And so if you think about like drawing a line from yourself to the person you're attacking, if you think Fang can travel along that line and have no part of his body clip the wall, then you should be good to go and you should be able to make it around the wall. So you just need a Fang's worth of width of room in order to clear the wall. So just keep that in mind when using it. Whenever you use your super, just think, is this gonna hit a wall? Because if it does hit a wall, you're kind of screwed. So very important thing, probably one of the most important things you need to know when using Fang super well. Then of course, there's the whole deal of thinking about who you even want to aim on in the first place and when you want to do it, because if you do it at the wrong time, you might accidentally chain to someone else who you don't want to land on and who might be a Shelly and blast you in the face. Not very good. So like I talked about in a previous video, the distance that an opponent needs to be in order to chain your super on them is 6 tiles. So you hit your first opponent, if there's anyone within 6 tiles of where you hit that first opponent, you're going to chain and go directly towards them. So keep that 6 tile distance in mind. It's not the full distance of his normal super, which is 9 tiles. So the chain distance is shorter than the original super distance. So as you play Fang, you'll sort of get a feel for what that 6 tiles feels like. And if you see an opponent that's more or less farther away than 6 tiles, you know you're good to go and you won't chain on them if you don't want to actually chain on them. But if you do want to chain on them, you want to make sure they're within that 6 tile range and not just within the 9 tile range of your initial super, because that's too long. That's not actually how it works. And generally, you just don't want to end up on brawlers that have like a pushback effect that can essentially stun you for the brief amount of time when you're being pushed back and then you'll take a ton of damage. That's very bad if you're Fang. And you also don't want to land on brawlers who have a ton of damage up close. Like I said, Shelly, usually no bueno, unless they're just like garbage, but you know, in that case, it doesn't really matter what you do because you'll probably win. Now, believe it or not, you don't always have to use your super to be aggressive. You can actually use it to run away from things. You hear that, randoms? You don't have to charge in with 10 gems on your opponents, believe it or not. So, I mean, it works great in gem grab whenever there's a ton of gems that are just lying on the ground because someone died. You can pick them up, get your super, and dash backwards, and then you're in safety, and you're good to go. And it's a lot better than using your super to just aggress on someone nearby and try to kill them when there are a bunch of gems lying around. So if you ever see that that's about to happen, like your opponent's got in countdown, you see your teammates are making a really good push on the gem carrier and you think they're about to die soon, save your super so that way you can be the one to run in, take the gems, and then run out. Because if no one has a super to do that, then while you're picking up the gems, they might respawn and kill you. So it's very, very good to have that ability to just run away from any situation. But a lot of other dash brawlers also have that ability, so you're probably pretty familiar with that. And like other dash brawlers, it's very good to pass to yourself in a brawl ball by just kicking the ball forward and using your super forward as well. And then you'll be near the ball and it'll just be faster than walking with the ball. But keep in mind, your super is a lot farther than how far you can actually kick the ball forward. So what you can do is kick the ball forward, but have it end up somewhere near a wall and then just aim your super towards that wall so it hits the wall and you actually take advantage of the fact that you get stopped and you don't go the full distance. That way you end up a lot closer to the ball so you don't have to use your super, come back to get the ball where you kicked it, and then go forward again. You can just go straight to the ball. I haven't even touched on what you need to do with his star power when using his super. And if you've already found these tips helpful, make sure to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. It lets me know you like these videos, and also you'll just be notified whenever I post other videos. And you don't want to miss out on these tips. Some of this information only lasts for a bit until brawlers get balanced, things get nerfed. So make sure to subscribe. Now with Fang's star power, fresh kicks, everything changes because we can now get so many freaking supers. It's crazy. All you have to do is kill someone with your last super, and that's going to instantly charge your next super. And the most important thing with Fang super, if you're using the star power, is to know exactly how much damage you do with your super. I cannot stress this enough. It is so important to know exactly how much damage you do. At power level 9, he does 1,680 damage, 1680 damage with his super. At power level 11, he does 1,800. So depending on where your Fang is at, just know your number. For me, it's 1680. Every time I go into a battle, I'm just constantly thinking 1680, 1680, 1680, and eventually you'll retain it in memory. But you really have to actively think about that number when you're first starting out with Fang, because that's going to completely dictate everything you do in the game. If you see someone who's under that number, just waste your super on them, because you're not really wasting anything since you're instantly getting it back and you get a kill off of it. So it's essentially a free kill if you ever see someone below that number, no matter where they are on the field. I mean, unless you're going into a really bad situation, in which case, I mean, you'll still have a super to get out of that situation if you make a mistake. But anyone below that number, 1680, you can use your super on them and just guarantee that you're losing absolutely nothing because of it. It's never a waste of your super if you're gonna instantly gain your super back from it. But then on the other hand, if you see someone slightly above 1680, and you think you can kill them with your super, you should actually hold off and probably just fight them at long range a little bit more, hit them with a couple of your shoes until you get them down below 1680, because then you can just use your super and instantly get your super back again. And that way you've completely killed an opponent and you haven't used your super at all. You still have your super to then continue to push on the other opponents. And that's gonna snowball really quickly if you can make that happen multiple times. So with this star power, you wanna be a bit more patient with your super and wait for the perfect time to use it. You might have to wait some more and do a bit more chip damage in order to get your opponents down to the point where it's a good idea to use it. I mean, if they're all like at full health and you think you can kill them at close range, just use your super and kill them normally. You don't always have to like get value out of their star power every single time you use your super. But if they're ever somewhat close to 1680, a bit above it or a bit below it, there's usually something you can do to take advantage of this star power. Now, if you ever do use your super and you get a lot of chains off of it and you get your super back in the middle of it, usually you don't want to immediately use it after you end the super. One, because a lot of things could have changed by the time you use your super and you don't really have the time to analyze the situation of what's going on in the field and see if it's actually worth it to use your super again. Now, if you ended up landing on top of like a Shelly or something, yeah, use your super immediately and get away. But in all the other cases, you should usually wait about like at least a second to process what's going on and see if it's actually worth it to use your super again, or if it's worth it to just take a breather, get back to your side of the field, and just have a full super charged up, ready to kill whoever comes close to you again. And also, if you spam it really fast, sometimes the auto aim is kind of glitchy and doesn't actually send you towards an opponent. It just sends you towards whatever direction you were traveling in last. So another good reason to not just be spamming your super if you get it in the middle of chaining your previous super, because it might not work correctly. So with your star power, if you know the exact amount of damage you can do, you can get value out of it so many times throughout the game. Finish off anyone who's below it, do a little bit more damage, and then finish off anyone who's slightly above it. And if they're at full health, no need to get value out of it, just play how you normally would. And that's basically the best way to use this star power in game. And that's basically all I have to say about Fang Super. Good stuff.